This video goes along with the video that Kaz over at Fourth Dimension did here a couple days ago. I was going to do this video yesterday, but was a little bit busy with seeing a doctor and stuff, so I'll get to it today. This is kind of my video response to it. Now, there is a huge, what I believe, fallacy or misperception in the Patriot and militia community that the coming Civil War, revolution, reset, take your pick, okay, that it's going to be fast, it's going to be easy, and that in less than a month the war is over, and then we're all going to get together in giant barbecues comparing souvenirs that we got off of the blue helmets and off of the Antifa people as we're enjoying cold beers. Part of this, I think, is misinformation that's being pushed by controlled patriot media, and don't for a second believe that that doesn't exist. There's a few radio people that I can think of that rumor has it are controlled shills. I'm not going to give any names because I don't want any strikes against my channel or potential legal case for what they say is slander, as they try to protect their names, and if they are actual shills, protect their cover. But they are out there. And a thing I do hear is this war is going to be fast, it's going to be over in a couple weeks, you know, there's going to be more of us than there's going to be them, that it's going to be a problem of, you know, being able to get in even one kill, let alone a bunch of them, and we're all going to be fighting over each other for collecting up the souvenirs, and we'll be exchanging foreign made pistols and, you know, berets and patches and all kinds of stuff on the battlefield, because once the first firefight's done, the war's over because there's no one left. It's bull. Okay, plain and simple. So I'll get this out of the way. I'll say this right now. This video is probably going to be extremely graphic. I'm not going to hold back like I normally do. Just to give you an idea of what's potentially coming here. Why people like me say we should find other ways around this to keep this war from happening if possible. But I do realize it's going to happen. And there's nothing any of us can do about it. All we've been able to do is hold it off. And yes, there are also people out there in the Patriot media that are heavily pushing for, let's get this going right now. Even if it's a militiaman that starts it, let's just get it going. We'll worry about what happens later, what the perceptions are, because the winner always writes the history books. As I've said more than once, whoever fires the first shot in this war will lose. And that's either going to be the person who decide that actually pulls the trigger, or the side that the propaganda says pulls the trigger. Because once that storyline is out there, that thought is out there that this side started it, that's what people are going to remember. Probably right up to the very end. And even at the end, they won't believe what the truth actually is. Now, Kaz, in his video, he said one of the questions he was asked when he did this podcast with Prepping 2.0 or Prepper 2.0, I'll put a link to Kaz's video in the description so you can watch it. He was asked who would win, a second civil war. And his response essentially was, no one will. And that's something that I do agree with. Now, do I believe the constitutionalist side, the libertarian side, the conservative side, the patriot side will win in the end? Yes. But the question is, what type of victory will it be? And I think it'll be more of a Pyrrhic victory in the end. It's a victory that will still end up destroying us. As Kaz pointed out, he said it's basically going to kill off 2 generations. And I think it'd be more than that. I think the survivors are going to be so scarred that it's going to affect them forever. And you're probably, wondering, well, what are you talking about? What's going to scar people? It's war. War is hell. Let me put it in context for you here. Tell you how much hell it's going to be. Those of us on the battlefield will not be the only ones suffering. You'll be out there. Okay, you'll be doing ambushes and that stuff. And just think about this for a second. When you pull a trigger, you're sending a round into another human being. When you throw a grenade, set off an IED, set off a claymore, its target is another human being. When you fire off that anti-tank weapon, whoever's inside the target is going to be peppered with shrapnel, and they're going to be heavily burned, possibly burned alive. These are another human beings. Now, all through high school, one of the things I heard in some of the classes, I don't remember if it was in history or if it was in some of the science classes, they talked about that a normal human being cannot kill another human being. And that's been found through psychology studies. And that's why the military dehumanizes the enemy, so that you look down on them, that they're less than human, which makes it easier for you to kill them. That's also why they use the targets that they do on military ranges. That's why the law enforcement uses the targets that they do. It's to condition you to be able to pull the trigger on another human being, but you don't look at them as another human being. You look at them as just that target. You do that little dissociation. So you're blowing apart people. You're pulling a trigger. You're watching someone that's standing in front of you. You're seeing their head explode. You're seeing the geysers from the blood coming off of them. Especially if it's nicks an artery. You'll hear their cries, their screams of pain, as they're crying for their mothers. That's something that's documented all through military history, is when someone is hit on the battlefield, even if they're married, they have kids, they always revert back and they call for their mother. Always happens. It's documented with German troops in World War II. It's documented with American troops in Vietnam. It's all over in the history books. When you actually read about the suffering the soldiers go through, as they're there, they're in pain, they're bleeding out, they're calling out for mama. And you're going to hear that. And it will affect you. Now, add to that, your buddies to your right and left, and potentially yourself, are going to get hit. That guy that's right next to you in the fighting position, right next to you in that ambush, you're talking to him 1 second, you're firing off a couple rounds, you say something to him, about, hey, that's funny, did you see that one go down? You turn to look his direction and you see his head's gone. Or you see he's laying there on the ground and his glassy eyes are staring right at you because he got hit and he's gone. Think about that. Think about what happens with soldiers when they see their best buddy die in combat and realize that that potentially is going to be you. That you're going to be the one that's going to have to experience that. That you'll be out there patrolling or moving from one location to another and not even realizing it, you walk right into a minefield. Landmines don't work like they do in movies. You step on the damn thing, you trip the tripwire, it goes off automatically. There's no delayed reaction. It isn't one of these things you step on it, take your foot off, and then it explodes. No, as soon as you put pressure on the damn pressure plate, it's going off. You're out there walking along. You think you're relatively safe. And then all of a sudden you hear an explosion. You look around, you see the dust is coming down. You see someone's laying on the ground and they're screaming at the top of their lungs because they're missing most of their leg. Because their crotch is peppered with shrapnel. And whatever used to be there ain't there no more. It's just a bloody pulp. Bits and pieces. What used to be on the inside of them is falling out on the ground. You're watching the blood pump out of the artery with every heartbeat. And you know there's nothing you can do about it. And then that's the thought that when that moment when it comes into your head that, hey, what happened to him? Is there a landmine next to me? Is there a tripwire next to me? What happened? Am I in danger? Or let's add to it the horror of a sniper. You're sitting there talking with your buddies, you're eating your chow, and then all of a sudden one of them falls down. You hear a wet smack. That's all you hear. Your buddy topples over and you think, oh, what the hell, did he slide off of the rock or the case he was sitting on? And you go over and look at him and you see the hole in his chest. Or you were looking at him when the hit happens and you seen the back of his head just disintegrate. The pink mist. That horror then hits you about, are you the next one that's in the crosshairs? Or how about you go to sleep at night? And then you think about what's going to happen if artillery starts coming in. Or an airstrike. How about you're moving through an area, going to link up with another unit, and that unit does not make it to the rendezvous point. So your officer or whoever's in charge of that element decides, well, let's go check where their AO should be at. We know generally where they were going to stay at for the night. And then when you get close to it, all you find is bodies laying everywhere. Not a mark on them. It just looks like they just fell over dead. That happened a lot during Vietnam. You read stuff about the LRP teams in Vietnam, long-range reconnaissance patrols. They talked about moving through enemy base areas, and they would come across large units of North Vietnamese still laying there. They're laying on their hammocks, laying next to burned out fire pits. The food had long since, dried up because the flame kept cooking. What happened was arc light raids, B-52 raids, not even on the area they were at, just close enough by that it literally sucked all the air, all the oxygen away. And the people suffocated and died instantly because the air was pulled out of their bodies. And they just dropped right to the ground where they were at. Not a mark on them. You read through the stuff on the histories of some of those veterans, and they talk about being haunted or walking through an area. Every single person that's there, you know, is dead. And all you see is their glassy eyes staring at you. Think about that. Let's add another dimension to this. Let's think about what's happening to the civilians while this is going on. You're out fighting. Your wife and kids are at home by themselves. You trust your wife that she can defend herself because she convinced you that she can. She'll take care of the family. Someone breaks into the house. Your wife tries to fight back, but she gets overpowered. If you have any sons that are a little bit older, maybe they try fighting back. But they aren't any more successful and they get killed for it. Even if they don't fight back, they'll probably get killed anyway. And then the people that broke into that home have their fun. They rape your young kids to death. They rape your wife to death. And you know what? If you want to think this stuff doesn't happen, how about you go look at some of the pictures out of South Africa? See what's happening to the Boers, to the white farmers, when African nationals break into the homes. I want you to look at the pictures of what they do to the young kids. Look at the pictures of what happens to that woman as they literally nailed her to a table. Spread eagle, wrists and legs, nailed them to the table, and then raped her repeatedly until she died. And then they kept on raping her. And then you read further in the story how they did the same thing to a daughter. A young girl, not even 10 years old, raped her to death. Do you think for a second stuff like that wouldn't happen here? Look into what happened in Rwanda. Consider this, you're moving in your unit. You're moving into a town that used to be supportive of the militia. And you get there, and it's a ghost town. There's nothing, there's no sound at all. You come to the meeting area for that small community, that small church, and you find it's burned to the ground. And you see in the ashes skulls. Arms stretched up that are nothing but bone, pointing their hand to God, asking for help. Or let's pull another thing from Africa, from the battlefields. You come into a town and you find a couple large pots cooking away over fires. And you think, hey, they left their food, we must have chased them out. Let's have something to eat. Do you know what they used to put in cooking pots in Africa? During the civil wars and genocides that went on in the 60s, the 70s, and the 80s and 90s? It was not uncommon. And some of the people that did this, that repented, that are trying to atone for their crimes, talked about coming into villages, you know, drafting people, raping the women and that stuff. And then they would take the small children, the babies, put them in cooking pots and boil them up. And they left that there cooking away. And then when the other side would come through the town, they seen the food cooking and figured, hey, let's have something to eat. The enemy left it behind, not even realizing it was small kids. Or let's say you catch someone in the act. Food's in extremely short supply. The war's been going on for a few years. You come across a group of people sitting down to a nice meal of suckling long pork. Think about that one. If you don't know what suckling long pork is, that's a human baby. They're sitting down enjoying a meal of a baby. And I'm sure some of you people are saying, oh, this stuff doesn't happen. Yes, it does. It has happened. It will happen. You see this stuff every damn day through the war. And you're probably seeing right now, well, it won't happen. Yes, it will. We're being conditioned for it. Look in the media how we dehumanize each other all the time. Being taught that the other side is less than human. We look down on the Antifas, they look down on us. We look down on the communists, they look down on us. Both sides consider the other side inhuman, not worth being around, so you're less likely to have any inhibitions when you're slaughtering them. Think about what happens at Planned Parenthoods and stuff, and the mentality of the people that work there. InfoWars had a thing where they went to a Planned Parenthood clinic down in Austin a few years ago. And they ran the clip in their commercial periods for a while of some of the things said by these, communists, anarchists that showed up there to attack them, to attack the protests, the pro-life protests. And there was one girl on there, almost demon-like, looking right at the camera. The reporter asks her about, what her thoughts are on kids and that stuff, or what happens in a clinic, and she proudly states, I kill my kids. I've killed 8 of them so far, and I'm going to kill more of them. That stuff's out there, people. People that are damn near demonic possessed, if not actually in real life they are. Consider that. Let's fast forward. You've been seeing this now for months, years. War's over. We've pushed out the enemy. We've sent, the blue helmets, the invaders, whoever packing. They're gone. We're deporting the sympathizers, the people we consider traitors, the ones that were fighting for the other side. Because we shouldn't just line them up and shoot them. That makes us no different than what they say we are. They have a right to live in the end. If the war's done, send them off somewhere else. And actually I have a video I want to do on that. I just haven't gotten to it. But you go home. The last time you seen your home, your family was okay. Your home was still standing. But that was years ago. You take that long journey back by train, by horse, by whatever means, and you get back home. And you find it's burned to the ground. You find graves in your yard that have long since grown over. And there's no writing on the graves. You don't know if that's your family members or if it's someone else who came to the house after your family left. If you have, 5 family members, a wife and 4 kids, you got 4 graves there. Well, which of your 4 family members are in that ground? And what happened to the one that's still alive? Was that one that was still alive dragged away? Turned into a slave? Turned into a recreational object? Raped repeatedly till they died? Forced into the enemy service? And you were fighting against them, and you might have pulled the trigger on your own kid and didn't even realize it on the battlefield? There's reasons why we say that at least 60, if not 80% or 90% of this country is going to be dead at the end of the war. And for the most part, we're going to do it to ourselves. You get home, you're going to find your homes burned to the ground. You don't know where your family is. You don't know who's still alive and what they're doing. They could be out in the woods somewhere, feral, a de-evolved human. You know, they've been pushing that quite a bit on stuff. Like in The Walking Dead with the character Daryl. They know if they kill him off, they're going to lose a ton of viewers, so they basically dehumanized him. He's no different than a caveman right now. You're going to get home and you're going to find everything that you thought was there waiting for you isn't there anymore. If you're lucky, you'll come home and you'll find out that your wife and your kids are still alive. But your kids are scarred beyond belief from the things they've seen. And you could potentially see them freak out from seeing you come in because they could think you're someone who's come there to hurt them because you're in uniform. They may not recognize you anymore because of all they've been through. You talk to your wife, but she doesn't even want to look at you because the only way she and the kids were able to survive was because she hoarded herself out to get food, money, medical supplies, anything to keep them alive. Think about that. Who's going to win that war? Long term, your children, really not your children, but your grandchildren, your great-grandchildren will win. But those of us that survive will be no different than the dead because of the horrors that will exist in our nightmares for the rest of our days. And you will have lots of people that will survive the war to the end, and their PTSD is going to be so bad they're going to kill themselves just to get at the end. You're going to come home and you're going to find that that job that you used to have that you were looking forward to going to isn't there anymore because your employer's dead. The place you worked at is destroyed, burned to the ground, destroyed in the urban fighting. Are you getting the picture yet? This war won't be quick. It won't be clean. It won't be glorious. It will not be easy. It will haunt you forever. Think about that. Kaz, if you want to use any parts of this, any clips from this video for your little response you got planned, go ahead. I got no issues. Starvation, disease, war, banditry. That's just the tip of the iceberg of what's going to happen through this fight. Chemical weapons, biological weapons, nuclear weapons. Do you think for a second they won't use that stuff against us? There's chemical weapons out there that literally melts your protective mask. I read about that stuff back in the late 90s, stuff that was in a Russian inventory, and you can guarantee we got similar stuff. It literally melts a protective mask. It melts to your face. In order to keep it from burning on your face, you pull it off as that automatic reaction. But when you do that, that means that the chemical agent is now searing its way through your lungs. So then what's your only option? You leave that mask on, and then it bonds to your face. It melts directly to your face, and the only way they can get it off is by peeling off the skin. That stuff's out there, people. And that's just what we know about. I want you to deliberately go out there, start looking at the pictures of genocides. Look at the pictures of what's happening to whites in South Africa. Look at the pictures of concentration camp victims. The pictures from inside the camps. That'll give you somewhat of an idea of what you can expect. You'll start having nightmares now when you start realizing what's coming. May God help us all.